Now, I'm sure there's some people out there who believe they can never get scammed, but if this lady walk into your home, she leaving with your social security number. Meet Elizabeth Holmes, the woman who scammed the world out of $10 billion with the promise that she was going to change the medical field. She lied. And it all started because Elizabeth had a problem. Even from a young age, she loved money. Her parents said, girl, what you want for Christmas? She said, stacks. Now, thing is, her parents weren't broke. They had money, but she wanted more. She started going to Stanford University to study chemical engineering, but she started touching her pockets. She said, hold on, I'm broke. She said, Professor, when I start getting the real racks? The professor said, well, the real racks, as you put it, is our contribution to science. She said, oh, that's broke talk. So she leaves to study abroad in China amongst the real bag chasers. She said, Shenzai Nali. They said, Juju Ming Li did and Buhui when Jiga Wenti. Elizabeth said, man, watch out with all that. I get money. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just start my own business. And that's when Elizabeth decides to start her own business, creating a medical device to be more specific. Now, you need to listen to this next part closely. You know how when you go to the hospital, you get your blood drawn so a doctor could figure out what's going on with your body? Well, Elizabeth's plan was to make a machine so all you'd have to do is get your finger pricked and a machine would scan you almost instantly. Now, the problem is actual blood analysis machines are so sophisticated and require so many parts that her idea was pretty much impossible. In fact, her professor tells her this. Elizabeth said, impossible for you, brokey. I'm gonna figure it out. Elizabeth drops out of school. She started telling people about her company so she could start raising some money. And what I tell you about her in the beginning of the video, if she walk into your house, she leaving with some. Her neighbor gives her $500,000. Her parents start throwing cash at her too. In fact, in just a few months, she raises $7 million. And her company, Theranos, was born. Some of the richest billionaires on earth start joining her. People who used to work for Apple, CEOs, politicians, they all start throwing money at her. She's valuated at around $30 million. She just started. They said, girl, where the machine at though? She said, huh? Oh, it's coming, it's coming. She creates a research department. She rushes in, she says, yo, where my machine at, y'all? They said, girl, I think your professor was right. This is tough. She said, how you know what my professor said? You wasn't in that part of the story. It don't matter. Make my machine. They said, all right, girl, it's the weekend though. When we come back Monday, she said, weekend? Boy, if you don't get in the lab. Oh yeah, Elizabeth was a tyrant. If you ain't with it, you gotta get out the way. Matter of fact, she hires an entirely new research team. And she says, hey, whoever makes my machine is my research team. Whoever don't, you fired. So her old research team start busting their ass, but it don't matter. What she wanted to create was impossible. Her chief financial officer figures that out. He started looking at the numbers. He said, Elizabeth, we worth 200 million now, but we don't have a machine. She said, you don't have a job, you fired. Fires him on the spot. He rushes over to the board of directors. Remember, CEOs, billionaires. He said, check your pockets, y'all. Elizabeth's scamming. They said, what? That's our job. Elizabeth, get in here right now. Their plan was to figure out what's going on and throw her out. But what did I say in the beginning of the video? She walked into your house. She leaving with something. Elizabeth walk in, cool as a fan. She said, yeah. They said, Elizabeth, where the machine? Where my money? She said, now, I don't know what she said. But what I do know is after that meeting, she convinced all the board of directors to stay. She convinced them a machine is on its way. And she convinced them to give her a majority stake in the company so she can make all the decisions and they can never question her again. She then looks at her employees and said, if anybody else want to run their mouth like that CFO, you fired and you getting sued. Everyone stay quiet. Now at this point, her company's worth about 10 billion. She starts to get really famous. And here's where things start to get wicked. She wanted more. Walgreens pulls up to her. They said, girl, we seen you on TV. She said, no pictures. They said, well, what about a check? They give her $140 million so her machines can be placed in their stores. So she takes the check, goes to her research department and says, okay, I need a couple machines for the Walgreens store. They said, did you build a machine? Because I don't see one in this lab. She said, okay, you fired. Anybody else? Her scientist said, Elizabeth, there is no machine. She said, okay, but Walgreens gave me some samples that we need to test. They said, Elizabeth, there is no machine. She says, what you mean? I see a machine right there. She decides to use regular blood testing machines that hospitals and everybody uses. And then she pretends that her machine did it. Walgreens says, amazing. When can we get the actual machines in the stores though? Elizabeth said, nothing. When the deadline came, she just didn't give him anything. People started saying, that's a little suspicious. See, at this point from when she created the company, it had been about 10 years. Still no machine. And at this point, she had made a lot of enemies. So people, including her employees, start talking to an investigative reporter. Elizabeth finds out. She rushes over to the reporter. She says, "Stop this story or you're getting sued." The reporter says, "Girl, I work for the Wall Street Journal. My boss is Rupert Murdoch. He got $20 billion. We not scared of you." But remember, she has some of the richest people in the world on her board. One of those people was Rupert Murdoch. She goes over to him. She says, "Stop this article from coming out." He said, "Nah, I believe in my team. They're going to tell the truth." Oh, and they told the truth all right. They told the world she was scamming. Elizabeth, though, cool as a fan, she said, "That's cap." She gets a knock on the door. She said, "Who that?" They said, "It's the FDA. We came to do a surprise inspection on your laboratory. See what's all going on." She said, "Today?" They said, "Surprise." They investigate her laboratory and find out her machine doesn't work, and it all starts crumbling down. Government agencies start piling on. Her investors begin to sue the hell out of her. She even gets sued by the state of Arizona because of all the tests she conducted on people. Fake tests with her machine that didn't work, and doctors need accurate tests so they can diagnose people. She loses hundreds of millions of dollars. She said, "Well, at least the FBI swooped in. They said, 'Girl, don't even say nothing. Put your hands behind your back.'" Oh yeah, the FBI had been investigating her. They already had their case. She was facing 22 years. Now, something I didn't mention was she had a business partner who she was in a relationship with named Sonny. The FBI came down on both of them. She basically says that like Sonny influenced her, but she takes responsibility and she starts the trial pregnant. She's basically getting as much sympathy as possible. Sonny denies it. He said, "All she want is paper at all times. I'm a bag chaser too, but that girl wild." The judge said, "And that's gonna be your only line in the story, 13 years. Elizabeth said, "And what about me?" The judge said, "You know what? You were facing 22 years, but we're just gonna have you do 3 months. She said, "Okay." The judge said, "And 11 years. She said, "Why did you say it like that?" He said, "Don't tell me how to do my job. Take her away." And well, there it was. As far as prisons go, she got locked up in a pretty nice one, but it's still prison. And just remember, there are a lot of people who deal in the business of selling dreams. But sometimes if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Now, another crazy part about this story is as of 2025, she just recently did an interview saying as soon as she gets out of prison, she gonna do it all again. Well, technically, she says she's gonna go back to revolutionizing the medical field. Maybe she'll do things right this time, but we're gonna see in about 7 years because she just got locked up recently. Yeah, she got till 2032. She's still gonna be in a pen with them folk. She just tried to ask for an appeal too. They said, "Nah, but we will take off a little bit of time due to good behavior." Boy, they took off a few months. She was supposed to get out in 2032. She getting out in late 2031. Now, I don't know how good behavior works, but if I'm supposed to do 11 years and they take off like 4 months, I'ma heat up. Like, you might as well just give me the full time at this point.